Moving on to our next story. Seems like we've been celebrating more box office wins than losses as of late, but Transformers 1 was decidedly less than meets the eye. At least with audiences, as the animated prequel debuted to a soft $25 million, a near franchise low. The muted response may come as a bit of a surprise coming off the heels of strong critic reviews and an A Cinemascore, but neither were enough to dethrone reigning box office champ BeetleJuice BeetleJuice, which just held the top spot, making $26 million in its third week. What do we think went wrong for Transformers 1, and can the franchise still transform itself into a version that's able to get auto butts in seats?
I can't do, like, how am I supposed to have a serious take after hearing you read that?
It's perfect. It was perfect, Jay Scotty. I loved it.
I'm trying to figure out what went wrong here, because for all intents and purposes, it seems like this movie was trying to, not that it's Spider-Verse, but it's trying to do what Spider-Verse did, and that bridging like the old and the new, bringing people who are older that like Transformers, bringing like the families, the younger people in. Like, it's trying to kind of capture that and do that thing. I mean, this is a franchise that Paramount has been trying to revive since the Michael Bay days, and has been trying to bring to the small screen and to the big screen, and with varying levels of success. And so it just makes me wonder, like, what happened to it, because like you said, the critics actually really like this. Like, it's got really positive reviews. The audience score is really good, which is usually a pretty good indication that people liked it when they left the theater. But I think it has to do with just bigger things than that. Like, I think it has to do with bigger than, is it good or not? I think, like, I'm trying to think it from my perspective, because I think I'm kind of the target audience for this movie. I have 3 children. They're all young. I have 2 6-year-olds and a 3-year-old, and they're all boys, and they love Transformers. And I'm trying to think about, okay, why did I not take them to this movie? Because I'm the target audience to take them to this movie. And the reason is because, for me, it's timing. Like, if this had come out in July, and it's like a Wednesday, I'm probably taking them to see the movie. It's like a rainy day on a Wednesday, or it's too hot or whatever. They're out of school. You know, it's probably something that I'm going to do. It's in the evening or whatever. But now we're right in the middle of September. You know, the kids are in school. Families are super busy. Like, my kids are doing sports. Everybody's doing fall sports. Their Saturdays are taken. Their Sundays are taken. Like, they're doing stuff. And I think this movie is the perfect example of that. Consumers, especially family consumers, are a lot more willing to wait for digital and streaming than the general audience. You know, you think about a Marvel film dropping, like, people aren't as much ready to wait for digital because you're going to get spoiled, or they're not going to wait for streaming or whatever. But a movie like this, it's a family movie. It's a prequel. Like, you can wait the extra 3 months or whatever until it pops on Paramount Plus, and you can just watch it at home. You can save yourself $50 or $60. And from a family perspective, you've won, right? And so I think, like, there's just capturing that family film. It's like we saw Inside Out do it, and do it huge, like go over $1 billion. But that movie came out in June. It was a sequel to an already successful franchise. And so it was like the perfect timing for family to be able to come out and see it and buy a lot of tickets for it. But now we get around to Transformers, and we're in school, we're busy, people's schedules are full all of a sudden, and it's just not going to do the same thing again. It's not a part 2, it's not an already Transformers is an existing IP, but you know what I mean? It's not building off like another franchise that's already been in existence. And man, like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, it's already in its first or second week. Like, what's another 2 months to wait until Paramount Plus? You know, like, that's the way I'm kind of looking at it. And I think a lot of parents are probably doing the same thing. So, and it's too young. I think this movie, the animation style, it looks too young to really capture that, like, older, like, people went and saw Spider-Verse that were older, you know, because it's different. Yep. It's not that, but this movie's not doing that. It looks like it's for kids, right? And so I think those
little comic dots on the screen serviced our age, you know what I mean? Like, we were like, oh, I remember little dots on the page. Like, that's my end. That's animation for me.
So I don't really expect that this movie will we talk about sometimes with kids movies, they'll kind of steadily grow their box office over time. I don't really expect this to do that. Like, I think people are just going to wait it out. And I think they're going to push it until streaming. And we live in a very fickle box office, where it's not always going to be a hit just because it's a kids movie or it's an existing IP. It's very tricky to kind of nail down like what the consumer wants when it comes to the theater experience.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I have a different take on this. I think this is a great performance for an animated Transformers movie. Like, I don't know what they were tracking for. I don't know what their budget was. They were tracking
for more than this.
I don't know what their budget was, but like, yes, the live action stuff did much better, of course, but it was aimed at a totally different audience. It is such a different vibe, and like it's about big destruction action movies of huge robots realistically transforming and smashing through buildings, and this is about robots. I mean, the first shot of the trailer is like, the Autobot planet and stuff. It doesn't have the same vibe and the same audience as the other movies. And so even if I were a huge Transformers fan, live action, I think those movies were aimed at kids, at people who liked the show as a kid. This movie is aimed at a new audience, a new Transformers audience, trying to capture like young kids to get them into Transformers. And it doesn't have really, I don't know that have they had a running TV show in the last 10 years or whatever?
They've always got
something.
Yeah, there's several.
Okay. Yeah. I guess the popularity of it or whatever. I'm just looking at other animated things that have gone into theaters, and like they didn't break 1 million. I mean, they were in the 80s,
sure.
So like, sure, but like
inflation.
And I think that's a bad sign too. It shows that we're not really turning out for animation, like in the theater. We love animation on streaming. Like, animation's huge on streaming.
Inside Out 2 is the highest grossing movie of.
But I'm saying it's not always like that though. Like, you have those those hits that are your Toy Stories, your Frozens, your Inside Outs, your
it has
all
to
that
be an
stuff.
event. And I don't think this is an event at all.
No,
for
definitely not.
For unless you're a big Transformers fan, this is just another animated movie. And you could be a great animation fan and want to see it, but I just don't think the audience is there, and the kids aren't clamoring for Transformers content right now.
Yeah, I think the animation style is not really made for those people who are like those diehard. Like, I've been a Transformers fan ever since I was a wee little kid playing with the Transformers in daycare. It's that style's not for them. It's not really trying to bring them in necessarily, or they may be trying, but like they kind of missed the mark. And so that may be part of it, is that, they've got that accidental shift in demographic,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's it. I did see the movie this weekend, and I did so kind of begrudgingly. Like, I never go into a movie like actively wanting to dislike it. I always go in with an open mind. But thinking about what went wrong, I really do think it was the marketing, because thinking back on that first trailer, yeah, that's what it did. It sold it as a kids movie. And I will say, while I kind of went in begrudgingly, I had heard the strong word of mouth, but I thought it was going to be. I was like, yeah, we'll see. Sometimes, critics kind of they tend to fluff, certain things up, and I was like, all right, let's see. And I have to say, it is a really solid movie. It is a kids movie. It's not a perfect movie, but it is a solid movie. And I actually liked it better than a movie I'm going to compare it to, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which came out around the same time last year. And in addition to the marketing, Jay and Matt, I think you both tapped into the other thing there, is the timing, because that movie came out in like the first part of August and was able to be pretty successful and benefit from those repeat viewings and kids still being out of school. So, had they moved this back a little bit to, I'm recalling a weekend in August where it seemed like the Crow remake was like the big thing coming out, and I didn't even go to the theater that weekend, and I probably would have showed up for this had it opened alongside it. I am a little concerned about what we talked about with like, what is the appetite for animated movies that aren't an event like that? Because next weekend we have The Wild Robot from DreamWorks coming out, and that's in a very similar position. It's not attached to any kind of IP, but I thought it had an incredible first trailer that really, got me in the feels and evoked like, Iron Giant. And then when I saw the second trailer, I didn't like it quite as much, but there is a lot of people are saying it's the best animated film of 2024, and that's people that have seen Inside Out too. So it'll be interesting to see like how that movie fares. Hopefully it's not, and again, we're calling this movie like a weak rollout, and Matt, like you said, like in the great scheme of things, it's not doom and gloom. It's not the end of the world for this movie. It is a weak debut. It's not a flop. It's not a disaster. It's not a bomb. It's just not great.
Yeah, and the budget for this thing is $75 million. So like you're not you're not like, you know, selling the rights to the thing because you made $25 million in your opening weekend. You know, but again, it's, I mean, I think you'd hope that, especially a family film, like you're hoping it at least hits 35, 40. Like that's kind of what you're probably hoping for at least. 25 it's pretty low compared to what we were looking for, I think, there.
Thank you, Vermilion1 in the chat, for correcting me. The Wild Robot is based on a book series, so it is existing IP. Thanks for the correction.
Well, and one that is on existing IP is that War of the Rohirrim movie is coming out in December. Like, what in the world is that going to do at the box office?
Sure.
You know, I mean, it's just
Oh, yeah.
You could tell me that movie, hey, it's going to be great, but like if you told me that movie bombs at the box office, like I'm not going to be that surprised.
That feels incredibly similarly positioned to this one. Like, I think that we'll do very similar numbers if I had to guess.
Yeah.
By the way, just since we didn't talk about it at all, I loved BeetleJuice. I finally got to see it this week. I loved it. I thought it was a great return for the franchise, and also rewatched the original Beetlejuice. It's just so good. It's a very well done movie, and I hadn't seen it since I was like probably 13 or something. I don't know. Hadn't seen it in 20 years. No, that's almost 30 years. But I haven't seen it in a long time. Sorry, had a midlife crisis in the middle of that sentence.
Hey, we hadn't had our show's annual midlife existential crisis. We haven't.
That's true.
That's right. So we can go ahead and check that off.
Yeah, that's true. Good call.